Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of the Bearded Federalist show. I am currently joined by Mark and Zach. We have a great show ready for you guys. You guys can see the topics right here, just below between me and Zach. Our first topic is going to be the Trump assassination attempt. We've got a lot of little subtopics in there as well. The RNC, there's a lot of good, bad, pros and cons that we would like to discuss with you guys. And then the last one will be, is Biden dropping out? So, getting started with the assassination attempt, what do you guys think about the that picture of him with his fist up and his face bloody? And what do you guys think about that, Mark?
This probably the single greatest image of Americana since 9/11. Like, it is pure, like, Americana. It is such a powerful image. It captures American spirit, like, to the core. Sums up our resolve. Like, it is just a powerful image on its own. And I can say that as a guy that's not the biggest Trump fan. Um, but what that image can communicate and show, like, imagery is powerful. And man, that thing is just one. It's going to be in textbooks for all of history. Like, it's just going to be the picture of this election forever.
Yeah, I agree with that. The fact that the flag is in the background, the blood on his ear, the fist raised up in the air. I don't know if you guys saw the other day, but someone was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg, and we all know he has his criticisms of Trump and what he's done with Meta concerning that. But he said it was the most American and most badass thing he's ever seen. And I think a lot of people are thinking that way. I know in this political landscape that we're in right now, there's just so many rumors going around of what actually occurred there. There's a lot of conspiracy theories online. And I think that it's important to let the FBI and, you know, all the other local law enforcement do investigations to see, what actually happened. But I think this was a moment that was not planned, obviously. I can't believe I have to say that it wasn't a conspiracy. I think it did change Trump in a way, uh, maybe not to the point that, he was putting on at the RNC convention a few days ago. But I do think it changed him. Now, I don't think we're going to see that change, outwardly, but the fact that he looked like he was almost going to cry during that speech and held back, I could tell that was sincere. But, then he went on for like 2 hours after that talking about God knows what. I was so zoned out, wanting to go to sleep.
Well,
Um,
let me ask you this, Zach. Does what happened last weekend, does that change the way you're thinking about voting or anything like that?
so
Just a quick
starting
yes or
out,
no. Quick yes or no. I mean,
yes and no.
okay.
I'll elaborate on that because while some people are saying yes, I'm gonna go out and vote Trump now. He survived. God stepped in and intervened. He has a plan for him, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, God may have saved him for reasons unknown, but that could just barely mean he's an instrument in God's plan. We don't know. We're not God. But Aaron McIntyre, if you don't listen to his AM Update podcast, you really should. He talked about how he was not ready to vote for Trump yet. He was looking for reasons, that Trump could give him to earn his vote because he said he wants to vote for someone who he could tell his son, to look up to, qualities in him that would make him, a good person. And Trump does not have any of that. He's not a good person. But in that moment, him falling to the ground, getting back up, and raising his fist in the air, you can't deny it. It was badass, but it also showed bravery. And bravery is a quality, to look for, especially in a president in these times. And so it isn't an endorsement by any means, because Trump is not a person really I would endorse. But as far as voting goes against Joe Biden or whoever the DNC tries to spit out in November, I think he's got my vote as of now.
So,
And I know Mark probably has some, a
you
different opinion on that.
you mentioned earlier that like the whole Secret Service and conspiracy theory. So I like to pull my news and my information from people that know about that specific topic. Okay, so specifically on the Secret Service, I've been listening to Dan Bongino this week, and he made a couple of really good points. And he is,
Yeah.
if there is one person right now that knows what's going on, it's Dan Bongino. He did it for what,
Yep.
4 years, 2 presidents, 5 years, 2 presidents, something like that. Anyway, so with all the information that's been coming out and with what he has said, and not just one person dropped the ball. It was multiple people that dropped the ball. We're getting crazy. We're getting intel that just doesn't make sense. And when something like that happens, I immediately think, oh, this is a conspiracy. Like there's something there. They were doing something. So, in my opinion, with the information that's there right now, I personally think that they tried to kill him, and they, as in the Democrat Party, or at least the evil portion of it, or the deep state, whatever you want to. It's all that crap. But I personally think that he did. I think they did try to kill him, and now that I'm going to say unalive from now on, because there's some platforms that don't like
Yeah.
that, but I think that the Democrats tried to play that card. They got it wrong, and now they didn't get that. So okay, if you think about it this way, if he was unalived, the Republican Party would be in complete disarray, and I do believe that Joe Biden would win in November. They played that card. It was not successful, and now they're trying to push Joe Biden out because they know that Joe Biden cannot beat Donald Trump. But I don't think any of the Democrats can actually. I don't think any of the Democrats at all can beat Donald Trump. Not with what happened, that whole fist pump thing, and I've even pulled out the mean tweets mug.
Oh, I think there's two Democrats that could potentially beat Trump, and one is Michelle Obama. Let's be honest.
She's
but I
not.
doubt that.
She's not going to run. She's
No,
already. She hates
she's
politics.
not going to run. The only other person that could in this, and I don't think it would actually happen because of the young voters on the Democratic side, but Josh Shapiro. If you guys haven't listened to his interview on the Breakfast Club, he is very accomplished, and he's pretty moderate because Pennsylvania has a divided house, and he reaches across the aisle and makes deals and everything. But I listened to him on like gun control and everything else, and he is moderate enough to wipe RFK Jr. out if he were the Democratic nominee and pull those votes from him to the point where I think he could beat Trump. Now, going back to what you said before Mark jumps in on, what he thinks, I will say I don't think they tried to kill him. I think it was two things being true at the same time. One, you have just incompetence in, the Secret Service. You have the DEI, Kimberly Cheadle, just making all of these mistakes and then a troubled young man who wanted to stand out. All the information coming out about him, everything points to that. I don't think it was politically motivated at all. I think that he wanted to be remembered, especially, him not making the marksman team in high school. I think he wanted to prove everyone wrong, and what better way to do that than to take out the most popular person in America? And so I think it's just a mixture of two things because, there hasn't been an assassination attempt in a long time, at
Since
least,
Reagan.
since Reagan. And so
Bush.
you're gonna have people drop the ball and think, oh, well, this isn't gonna happen. We can let this slide today. But now she is, if she doesn't step down, it's going to be a
So
massive failure,
do
and I
all,
think it's
all
really going to play into this election.
do all three of us agree that something needs to be done? FBI, Secret Service, that somebody needs to go in there and clean house. We all agree.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, Mark, your
So
thoughts?
yeah, man. So one more thing on that picture. The absolute defiance in that picture is pure leadership and is something this country needs. In that picture, the assassination attempt. The thing that really upsets me about assassination attempts in general. So Trump is not the sitting president, okay, but he is the front runner in an election to that. And an assassination attempt is a direct attack on the citizens' ability to choose their leaders. Right? It's an attack on our Republican form of democracy itself, um,
Hmm.
because I want the power and ability to say yes or no to this man. And you shooting him and killing him takes that from us. And so that defiance was needed for that reason. Um, but as far as the motives and history and stuff going on there, Bongino, I'm not a big fan of,
Oh
but
no, me neither, man.
but
Me neither, but he was
so
correct.
there's a concept called a genetic fallacy, all right, in logical debates. And a genetic fallacy basically says just because a source of information has a history of having incorrect information doesn't make the information they're presenting now necessarily false, right? So you have to take the argument itself. So even though I don't like Bongino that much, he is an expert on this, and some of the things he says has to be taken. Now, also, you have to apply the fact that he is a massive Trump supporter, so he throws in some of his own biases there as well.
Mhm.
The question on if this was planned, intentional, I reject it mostly because much of this detail, the personal protection deal, the PPD guys that were with him closely, they've been with him since 2018. It's the same group. And so that predates uh, the Democrats having ability to move people in and out of that position. Um, so it's wild there. But do I put blame on them? Absolutely, because their policies is what made this happen. They lowered the standards for requirements. They lowered the standards for recruiting. They lowered the standards across the board on who to pick there. Uh, I I was in the military. I was a Black Hawk helicopter crew chief and spent some time in the lovely country of. Let's see if I can get this in there. It's not even showing up because I suck at this. But you know, I was in Korea for 2 years, and in Korea, the unit I was in was a VIP unit. So our job was to escort ambassadors and dignitaries and generals and even celebrities. My first mission there was to escort the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders around South Korea. It was a
Nice.
rough job. I had to make sacrifices for our nation. Um, but um, yeah, so while doing that, the VIP stuff, we worked closely with personal protection details and security units and whatnot. And one thing that's even down to like a decent general, the people you want around them are experienced. And having had bullets shot at me, having been where things are going crazy, and having been in the fog of war, and having seen it in people with me, watching this go down, it was the premier study, I think, for anyone that wants to see how the fog of war hits somebody who's just getting their first experiences with combat. These security personnel were stunned, were shocked. We had that one Secret Service agent just frozen at the bottom of the stairs. She did not move for 10 seconds. She just was in shock there. You hear the live mic. Okay, where are we going? What are we doing? What's going on? And you see even the sniper detail in the back. He comes out of his scope and he's watching, and he's getting back in it, and the shot goes, and you see the flinch, and then getting back in.
Well,
that-
so I've actually read, I don't know which source it was, but I heard he wasn't actually the one that took the shooter out.
Right.
So-
But you see the natural reactions there that these people had, the instinct that happens. So when you are in a fight or flight situation, your gross motor reflexes all shut down. Your ability to really take in information shuts down. You get tunnel vision. Like, there are physiological things that happen. And the only way that is combated is through experience and training. So training can only do so much, but it can't replace actual experience. And when you are surrounding the president of the United States, or even the top running candidate as his opponent, you want experienced people there. And you can just tell these people had, they just got their cherry popped as far as combat goes. That was a new experience for them. They just had no idea what was going on. So I don't think it was an intentional, like, an assassination plot by the Democrats to take out the front runner against Biden. I have a hard time connecting those pieces because of two things. One, that detail's been with them since 2018. And two, I usually apply what they call Helen's razor. I don't attribute malice to something that can be explained through incompetence. So that's more of a personal approach and lens on things for myself. It's not always grounded in truth of what is happening there. Sometimes there is malice. But if I can explain it with incompetence, that's the direction I usually go. And so I just saw gross incompetence at every level of this. The fact you don't know where to go is asinine. You do walkthroughs. Like, these guys, literally, when the stage is set up, long before the event, the team gets up there and they walk through what to do when this happens. They know exactly where that vehicle is. They know exactly what's going on. They walk through all that. And so you see that fog of war kick in, and all the training goes out, and they're like, what are we doing? Because it was their first time.
Yeah. Now,
So I would
do
like
you
to.
guys,
I would like to hold on. Give me just a second. So I would like to state that I don't think that the Democratic Party went out, found this dude, hired him to do the job. I think that the Democrat Party had someone in that management team that said if a problem ever arose where it would be possible to, you should let it happen. Okay.
I think there's too many areas of failure
And-
that happen for one
So-
person or even a team to do that.
So I do
Yeah.
agree that there are some jumps that I've made to come to my conclusion, but so I'd like to point out the first one is they actually fired the guy that shot whatever. I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't deserve to be known, but they fired the Secret Service agent or the police officer, whatever he was, that actually killed the dude. So, and the reason why they fired him is because they specifically told him, "Hey, do not shoot back. Do not engage. Do not shoot back." And he said, "Fuck that," and took him out. So, what would have happened if he didn't? Worst case scenario is he would have 8 more shots and potentially 8 8-ish more people could be injured or killed. Okay. So
do we have
that's
yeah, that-
do we have those
Yeah.
ROE orders, like the rules of engagement orders? Do
But The rules of engagement is the same as per Dan Bongino, is the same as what would be like in the Middle East in an actual war scene. So if they saw someone with a gun pointed at the president or pointed to a crowd, you have the obligation to take that person out to potentially save lives, and that would be your
Yeah,
justification for the.
we push command decisions like that down to the boots on the ground. So
Yeah.
that
So
shooter.
my second point is that they knew well before the event even started that he was a person of interest that they needed to watch. Okay, there was miscommunication between the different departments. I don't understand why the Secret Service just didn't have enough people there to hold the whole thing down. If you need more people, he should have had more people. That's, I mean, flat out. And I would say the same thing for Joe Biden. Okay, so it's not, I'm not trying to be biased in whatever, but he was up on top of that roof for more than, so the initial report was that he was only on the roof for like 2 minutes. No, he was on the roof for like 30 minutes. He had a rangefinder before. Like, they knew this guy was about to do something. Like, there's no excuse. And that's the reason why I think that somebody purposely dropped the ball, and that's my conspiracy theory. Okay.
Well, as far as the rangefinder goes, I want to say that they found out that he had visited the site previously
Yes, twice.
and scoped
Twice.
it. Yeah, twice. But as far as being there 30 minutes early with the rangefinder and everything, I think he already had all of that planned out. So I have to see more details come out about that. But tell me if you guys agree with this take. I don't think women should be in Secret Service. I think that is a man's job, and that doesn't mean law enforcement, anything of that nature. Women can't do that because they can. But when your job is to essentially be a bodyguard for a man, typically, you need to have the strength and stature to be able to cover that person. Now, if you're having to lower fitness requirements and other things so that you can be in the Secret Service, that's just BS, because there should be it should be the same as any army on earth. You don't make sacrifices to accommodate people. You literally have to be able to do the job. And if you can't do that job or pass the fitness requirements, you don't get the job.
So here's my take. So a lot of people that follow me on Twitter know that I'm a shipbuilder. Shipbuilding, especially for Coast Guard and the Navy, you build a ship for a 5% female, so very short, very small, all the way to a 95% male. So very tall, very large. So I'm a 95 percentile male. I'm 6'4". I'm a huge guy. I'm in that 95 percentile. So I'm trying to think of a 5% female right off the top of my head, and I can't think of one. But so in my opinion, there are a lot of jobs that, depending on your abilities, you can and can't do. Not only do I agree with females should not be in that type of Secret Service. Can they be in the office or whatever, do like controlling drones and stuff like that? Yeah, sure. But actually out in the field like that, carrying something supposed to defend? No. You need 6'4", 300-pound big ass dudes to protect the president or a nominee or whatever. The Secret Service guy should be very tall, very strong, muscular, very fit, and you need 95 percentile males. Not just males, but you need 95 percentile males. Mark, do you have a specific input on that one?
So I struggle with hasty generalities. It's another logical fallacy there, where we make broad strokes on certain things like that. And to give an example, so on the Black Hawk helicopter, we have a rotor. When it gets going, we call it the rotor disc up top because it just looks like a disc when it's going, right? And the job of a crew chief is if this aircraft goes down, or we have to crash or anything like that, and the crew on board is unconscious, you have to be able to get them outside of that rotor disc to safety, right? and you have to do that with all of their gear on. I've had 2 women on my. I was an FI, a flight instructor, as a crew chief, and so it was my job to train the crew chiefs in all of the standardizations and the taskings that we had to do. But I had 2 women that qualified, and what I had them do is we had this 6'4" dude. It was 260 pounds before we put the gear on, and I put him in the crew chief window, and that's a small window. It's not super big. It's not easy to climb in and out of, especially with your gear on. But the responsibility and task for them was 2 things. One, you had to be able to get him out of that seat and outside of the rotor disc with all of his gear. 2, you had to be able to drop the pilot seat down, retract it, slide the pilot back out, and back out through that same window as well with all their gear. And I've had 2 females that were able to physically do that and do it competently. And so
again, they were able to pass the fitness part of it.
Raise to the standards, keep the standards high.
Keep the standards.
Do that. And so now, if we also say, well, we need the standards for them to be of a certain size, at least taller than the principal, the person they're protecting, right?
Yeah.
At least taller than that, then are there females that are that tall and that strong to do that? Yeah, it's very tiny percentage of population, but they're out there. And so just saying no females whatsoever. Enforce the standards. Like, this is the rules. This is what we require. Everybody on that detail must meet that. Okay, cool.
No, yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying no females. I'm just saying, like, if you have someone like Ronda Rousey or Gina Carino, who's just, a badass.
Still too short. Yeah, I disagree.
They're still too short, but when they're still not lowering the fitness requirements. Like, for men you have to do 50 push-ups in a minute, and for women you only have to do 30. It's like, no, they need to be equal. If they can't do it, then it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I would like to point out that there were a couple of females that I served with when I was in the military, and they were stronger than I was, and definitely stronger than I was pound for pound. So I'm not saying that there aren't any females out there that could do that job, but they need to meet that, or that can't. That all females can't. But my point is that you need the 95 percentile male. At least that's got to at least be the standard. You need big people, strong people to do that job.
Donald Trump is 6'3", 215.
No, he's like 275. There's no.
That's the joke. That's the joke.
Oh, that's the joke. Okay, so
yeah.
I just I got a little. My hair just got a little shorter. So there's been a lot of discussion this week after we're going to stay on the assassination attempt, but there's been a lot of discussion this week about like people saying, "Oh, you missed" and all that stuff. What do you guys think about the libs of TikTok doxing people? I think Zach, you have a lot to say on this one, so I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, so I guess the most notoriable person that I got into a disagreement with on X the other day is John Cardillo. And John is a great guy. When I got doxxed back in December, he kind of helped me out, told me if there's anything I needed to let him know. Great guy. And so we had a pretty civil discussion, and his view on it is the people that made those threats or statements against Donald Trump would do the same thing if the roles were reversed, and that it was justifiable. And to me, it didn't. As someone who had been doxxed before, I don't think that political disagreements should be grounds for firing. And so for me, it's more about the principle of the whole situation. Now, if that person made actual threats that broke the law and the terms of service for that platform, in this instance it was Facebook, and so I think if they broke those terms of service, they should be suspended from Facebook without question. And the authorities should be notified and let it go from there. Or even if they wanted to tip the authorities off, that's one thing. But to, post their Facebook profile, post where they work, and then show up at their work, make a viral moment, and then, you know, pressure them to be fired. I think for conservatives, it's very wrong to do. And I think it's also hypocritical because of, a lot of the things that have happened in the past and some of the things that conservatives and some of the right wing commentators have said about Paul Pelosi when David DePape broke into their home and, beat him with a hammer. There were people on the right that were calling, uh, praising him and saying, oh, Nancy should have been home, things along those lines. And everyone was silent. No one on the right was trying to stand up for Paul Pelosi or whatever his name is. Is it Paul Pelosi? Yeah, Paul Pelosi, and get them fired. So I found it very hypocritical, and I just think if it's a slippery slope that we're going down, if we disagree with someone over their speech and then try and get them fired, because if it didn't break the law, then who makes those decisions as to what is too far and what isn't? If you
So,
can't have free speech, then
so you make a really good point, and I have on at least on Twitter, some of my followers on Twitter, if you're watching the show, have already seen me say this multiple times. You have the freedom of speech to say whatever you want, including hate speech. There are some outliers like threatening people. You can't say that, but I don't really see the oh he missed. I don't really see that as a threat. But if you are actually threatening the president, I do think that the police should take care of that. Now, on Twitter, I have said specifically, you have the freedom of speech, including hate speech, whatever you want to say, you're allowed to say it, at least in the United States. But that does not mean that there's not going to be some social repercussions. Am I ever going to dox anybody? No. Have I been doxed before? I sure have. But I've kind of shielded myself, and it doesn't really matter. What you're going to get me fired from my job? I'll have another one tomorrow. I promise. It doesn't. It's not going to. It's what I do for a living. No, that's fine. Post whatever you want online about me because I don't care. Now I am curious what Mark thinks. Mark, since you're the law constitutional guy, do you have any specific thing that I didn't just hit with the hey, you have a freedom of speech? I'm curious about where we differ on the freedom of speech line.
I don't think we do. But there's a lot of nuance to this. Okay, so there's the legal question, totally legal, totally fine as the bounds of law goes. But there's the principled approach. We're in a moment in time right now where we in the GOP are fighting over the definition of what it means to be conservative. Like, what does that mean anymore? Populists are trying to take it over. You know, the neocon rhinos tried to run with it, and so we have vast extremes trying to take control of this word and what it means to be conservative. And as far as it applies to something like doxing and things like that, our moral principles, as far as principles on how we approach society and each other, we inherit those from, the Judeo-Christian background, but also the principles of the founders. And I seriously cannot picture, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson hated each other. They were bitter enemies until the end. It was a competition to the day they died. They both died on July 4th, and within hours of each other. And the last words was, "At least I outlived him." Right? So, like, they were bitter at that. But I can't see them doing something so petty. And so the sources for which we derive our principles and values, I can't see them engaging in something as childish and petty as this. Um, they were huge on the idea of conscience, to let people speak their conscience, have their conscience, and do and follow their conscience. That was all over their writings. They were so huge on that. And that the only way that you attack someone based on their speech from conscience is using the tool of reason, and not using force and manipulation, coercion. Doxing is nothing more than coercion, and it's an attempt to silence speech. That's all that it is every single time. Reporting mechanisms exist. If they're breaking terms of service, report them. If they're breaking the law, report them. Um, if you need other people to help report them, then you highlight that and say, hey, they need to be reported. But you don't go after their livelihood. We have due process for a reason. Even X, as crazy as it is and screwed up as the algorithm is, they have a review process that they go through to examine if things are breaking their rules or not.
Now
Sometimes it's
that
really
isn't
hard.
always the best, I might
Right? No, I
add.
would say it's not been the best, and there's no level of consistency there. Like there's some issues with it, but it exists. So there's a mechanism in place to
And
address these kind of issues.
and I made another point the other day that she was outside of work when she made that comment, and to my knowledge, she wasn't associated with Home Depot um, while she was doing that, and so it begs the question, like, it'd be one thing if you were at a bar saying that and you're wearing like a Home Depot apron or Home Depot shirt or something, then you are reflecting that company and your employer should know. But if you're off the clock and no one knows you work there unless they do extensive research on you, then I don't think that that's appropriate. You need to contact the authorities or report the post and leave it to them. If they're arrested or investigated, their employer's going to find out, and then they can
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yep.
So I'd like
It,
to
I just
go ahead, Mark.
I'm just imagine being HR, getting a phone call saying there's somebody saying stuff that works for you on X. Just now you're involving other people's time and resources. You're costing the company money to do this, to get involved. Like it is anathema to the concepts of liberty right from the get go. Doxing is just the most childish, pettiest, anti-conservative concept that there is.
Yep, I agree. So I like to go ahead and move on to what you guys thought about the RNC. So I like a good thing about the RNC, the bad thing about the RNC, and then do you think that the Republican Party is unified? Zach, do you want to take this one first?
Oh boy. Um, the good thing I liked about it, there's two that I can really say. DeSantis's speech, perfect. It was very energetic, very unifying to me. The crowd seemed to love it. Now, I won't go into too much detail about that because, most of us have seen it. It's been posted countless times, at least on my timeline. Now, the negatives. Um, First one, I think that the RNC convention has just turned into a giant entertainment show. And there were some tacky moments. If you saw Hulk Hogan,
Kid
uh,
Rock.
you rip his shirt off. Now, granted, Hulk Hogan is a personality. He did break character, and he gave his, reasoning as to him not being political. But when he saw Donald Trump get shot, he, you know, supported Trump. That, kind of redeemed it a little bit for me. Kid Rock, his performance was absolute garbage. I don't really care for Kid Rock other than like one song, but the one that got to me the most, of course, that made the most controversy was Amber Rose. Now, a lot on the right say, we should welcome more Republican voters. They don't have to agree with us or anything. And that's absolutely true. You're not going to agree with everyone on everything. But when you highlight them to speak at a RNC convention, you are giving them a platform. You are saying, hey, this is kind of like a spokesperson for us and the values that we adhere to. And back in March, Amber Rose went on a podcast where she said that Satanism was good and that it allowed women in southern states to get abortions. And then you see Twitter or X go crazy. You have a lot of people ignoring her and then pulling the whole, well, let he who's without sin cast the first stone. And it's like, I'm not judging her. That's not my job. But we should not be giving people that don't agree with our platform a voice. Just because she may bring in voters, I don't know, out of her 23 or 24 million voters, who's going to magically vote Trump because she is, to my knowledge, I have no idea. But I just think we have become a party that cares more about sacrificing principles to win than planning firmly in our beliefs and trying to change people's way of thinking and their viewpoints to match ours. Where we cave so heavily to things. For example, J.D. Vance came out in support of the abortion pill right before he announced his, or Donald Trump announced him as VP. The whole end abortion taken off his website. The pill that they now support, responsible for 63% of all abortions. And so we have shifted further to the left. The 1990s Democratic Party is essentially where we are, and I am fearful that in the next 30 years, we're going to be where the current left is now.
So what about the Republican Party being unified? Do you think it's unified? It's definitely more. I think it's more unified than the Democrat Party.
No, it's unified, but just because it's unified doesn't mean it's in agreement. I think that the Democratic Party is so bad right now and the country is just so terrible that you have a lot of people that just don't like Trump, but they don't like Joe Biden or the Democrats more. And countless people I run into, I don't like Trump, but we can't have another 4 years of Joe Biden. So I think it's unified on that front. But as far as beliefs and core values go, no, not at all.
Okay, Mark, what about you? What do you? So the question was, a good thing about the RNC, a bad thing about the RNC, and then do you think the Republican Party is unified?
Yeah, I mean, so good thing, honestly. Like Zach nailed it. That DeSantis speech was just fire, and he was hilarious. He was on point. The weekend at Bernie's comment was one of the best lines of the whole convention.
He
His
did the meme.
like, and it's a question of how well he was received. Like, the applause throughout his thing was endless. It was loud. It was crazy. But that's only, I mean, it was peak time there. Everyone was going to be there. Everyone was pumped up already. So that's not really the best metric. But looking at the downloads and replays and things of his video compared to all the other speeches, he's just killing it. Like,
Dustin's video of his speech got like 4 million views.
yeah, Yep, it is through the roof. He was on fire. Pretty much, really doing a good job at trying to unite the party, um, and at the same time, really putting his foot down and showing um, what's down the road for us. I thought a funny part in that speech. I might have been the only one to see this, and I can honestly say it could be my own bias here, but he was going off on the accomplishments in Florida, and the crowd was going crazy. Like they were loving what he was doing there. And then he said, "And Donald Trump can bring this nationally," and the crowd went quiet. Like it was super quiet. Um,
They knew.
and I was like, what just happened? Like I can attribute it, maybe the sound went out or anything, but optically it was hilarious for me. Like it was just so, it was great. I loved his presentation. Um, as far as what went bad there, day one, we had a pro-abortionist speaker. We had a pro-gender identity speaker. We had a union boss, where the unions are the number one donors to Democrat parties. We had a union boss up there. Um, we had uh, a slut walk culture representative up there who pushes hypersexuality and really is a problem as far as who we are. And so looking at all of this, I'm just like, this is like Zach nailed it. This is the 1990s Democrat platform. We're looking at it right on stage. I made a post of Bill Clinton changing affiliation, becoming a Republican now, because it was his, like it easily could have been Bill Clinton's conference there. It was just crazy. Um, the idea that it's pure entertainment is true. I mean, it is true. It's meant to the hype. It's meant to get momentum going. Conventions have always been that way. They've always been big hype trains. So that's par for the course. That's politics. Um,
So
but
what about the Republican Party being unified?
um, on their face, yes. The foot that they're putting forward to the public is that they are unified. We all know behind the scenes that is not the case. There is a massive civil war between the populists and the conservatives. Yeah, we are fighting for this uh, party and fighting for the country, and we both do not come at it from the same angle. It is a mass battle, and what you saw at this thing is a populist extravaganza. Um, so if there's any kind of concept that it's united, I would say right now the GOP is a populist party. Um, it's going to be up to conservatives to fight for it and win it back. But uh, right now, that was clearly evident. I mean, it was crack. You have Paul Hogan. So, I mean, I can just go. So Paul Hogan, you know, troubles with the law. What were the troubles with the law he had? Did you guys know, like, things that he had
The
with his
only thing
family?
that I know about Hulk Hogan is he was a WWE wrestler and he likes to
Well,
rip his shirt off.
so Hulk Hogan, the only thing I know about him per se that came out in the last few days, to my knowledge, was there was something about a sex tape that was released um, without his knowledge, and
Oh,
he sued that platform into oblivion to the point where they told them, hey, you have to take this off your platform. And I want to say that they ignored it and said, no, we're not taking it off of our platform. I don't know much that happened after that. I just know that the woman, or one of the women that worked at that place, blamed Hulk Hogan for her livelihood or whatever. And then Christina, like, her response to it was, well, maybe you shouldn't, post explicit videos without people's consent and try and play victim.
Mhm.
But that
wow.
that that was as much as I know. I don't really keep up with Hulk
So,
Hogan. I think the only
so
thing I
yeah,
saw, yeah,
he's a dude that's
good.
had multiple affairs on his wife. He's a dude that uh, their divorce showed massive amounts of abuse. Um, it, he was pretty abusive to her. And so we have these people on stage representing the party that are direct defiance to our deepest institutions, the nuclear family, the sanctity of marriage, how education and everything starts at home and drives up through there. So it was this, and this is just the populist thing. It's not about having any kind of principles or values that are rooted in any kind of institutions or history or anything bigger than themselves. It's not rooted. There's no ground to stand on there. Instead, it's just an us versus them approach. It's anti-elitism, which is just hilarious because the inevitability. We make fun of wokeism because it'll just inevitably eat its own. There's no way wokeism doesn't. Well, the problem with elitism, anti-elitism, and populism is eventually you become the elitist, and then what? Right? So it's just you're going to end up eating your own, and so that's what we watched. The party shifted hard left, hard left. Reagan warned about this in 1980. He gave a beautiful speech about, the problem with expanding the tent so wide is you get it to a point where you can't differentiate between this tent and that one. They overlap.
Yep.
What I say has happened is it hasn't expanded. Instead, we've literally picked up the tent, moved it over to the left, dropped it down, and the conservatives have fallen out the other side.
Yep.
And so we're hurting as a party. I don't think it's truly united. I think there's a civil war going on. But on the face, and this is where it matters, on the face, we are. And that has been successful in pulling in independents. This last week, we had a massive drop of new poll coming out, and the shift towards Trump has been astronomical. And so, yeah, it's worked. It's done what it needed to. I want to touch on one thing though. There was a question you asked. I forgot to answer for you. Was does the assassination attempt change my perspective on my vote?
Yes.
So the answer to that is a resounding no. Getting shot at does not turn one from a populist into a conservative. His core values and principles have not changed. Matter of fact, I actually fear a further slide. Trump pushed the Dianne Feinstein gun control bill. He worked hard to try to get that passed. The whole thing. He sat there across the table from the Republicans. He sat with Dianne Feinstein on one side and Joe Manchin on the other, and fought against the GOP and saying, "I'm not afraid. You guys are afraid of the NRA. I'm not." So he tried to push the entire Feinstein gun control bill. He got stopped by the conservatives in the Freedom Caucus. They stopped that bill from ever getting out of committee. And so that made him upset, and that's how we got the executive orders that he pushed out on the bump stock bans, which just got turned over by the courts because that was unconstitutional. So Trump is not against going after the Second Amendment, and I'm afraid this getting shot at might push him further that direction.
I think that the bump stocks. I think that wasn't that reversed by SCOTUS
It was
recently. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, while I agree with you on that, the reality that we're in is not for everyone. You always have a choice, but the reality is it's going to be a Republican or a Democrat. Now, as far as the House and the Senate go, we always want those to be red. But does it not make our job easier as Republicans to have someone who agrees with us even 20% of the time versus 0% of the time? And who would, now I'm not saying that the conservative justices that are on the court right now are any good. I think the only good appointee by Trump or Mitch McConnell was Neil Gorsuch. Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh have been disappointing to say the least, especially Amy Coney Barrett. But I would much rather have them on the court than Justice Jackson. And so I
I
saw something earlier where Joe Biden wants to introduce term limits to the Supreme Court. And I think that is a bigger threat to democracy than anything. Now, one thing we can all agree on is I don't think Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And I say that only because, in order to be a threat to democracy, you have to be effective. And let's be honest, he can't even get, a wall built with Republican control. I mean,
So let me
I
push
don't
this
think
back
he's
then.
smart
Hold on a
enough.
second. Hold on a second. I would like to get back to what we were originally talking about, and then come back to this if we can. So, because
Okay,
I
yeah.
actually have a lot to say about what I the RNC and all that stuff. So the question was, what's a good thing and a bad thing about the RNC, and do I think that the Republican Party was unified? So a good thing I did like Ron DeSantis' speech, there was a pastor I think on day 3 that I really enjoyed. He really uh, you two know this, but the last couple of years I've really come back to Christ, and my Bible, I've got my Bible is literally right here on my desk next to me, and I'm always, even when I'm playing video games, like it's right there for me. If I'm ever thinking about something while I've got it right there. So the pastor really did speak to me. But the one thing that I would like to point out that I thought was absolutely amazing was this Kai Madison Trump, granddaughter of Donald Trump, at 17 years old, at 17 people, she got up in front of thousands of people and
Yeah,
spoke. Like
I love it.
I'm nervous and I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it. And she did
It
that at
definitely
17.
humanized him. It
Like
humanized him.
it doesn't really matter what she's. All I needed to know was that she was 17 and speaking at the RNC. Like
Yeah, so I'm a former
Kai,
youth pastor, and so seeing youth do that, it sets me on fire. Like,
yeah, for
the
sure.
Bible, 2 Timothy 4:12. Do not despise your youth, but as a youth, be the example to the church in word, in conduct, in deed. So, like, there's never been a movement on in the history of Earth that hasn't come through youth. God chose to enter the world. Jesus came into the world through a 13-year-old girl, right? So, um, like, it's always been through the youth, and so anytime I see a youth step up to a large stage and make a motion, I get
Yeah,
pumped up. It's funny. It happens for me even when I disagree with their premise or their platform. I like to see them just getting active. I'm
yeah.
like, you will grow up, you will mature into this, you will learn stuff. But man, seeing them get active is great. So
And
yeah, I agree with you. That was good
I'll
to see.
be honest with you guys and our viewers. Like, yes, I thought that the Donald Trump with the blood on his face, I honestly, like, that was the most patriotic thing I think I've ever seen in my life, and it pumped me up when I saw that. It did. But Kai at 17 getting on that stage, like, holy crap. Holy crap.
The thing is,
There's something to be said about the if you look at Hillary Clinton, her daughter, and Donald Trump and his sons, and Ivanka, and then their kids, there is something to be said about when you raise or even if you want to say that he didn't raise them, it was his wives. He at least picked his wives, and they mothered. Like, there's something to be said about raising a child to be able to have that sort of, I don't know, gut and grime to do that. Zach, did you
yeah,
have a point?
yeah, I was going to say to a lot of people, it kind of humanizes
Yeah,
him,
yeah,
shows he's a loving grandfather. And to me, out of all of the speeches, he looked the most engaged and the happiest when he was listening to his granddaughter. And, to viewers, that speaks volumes. And as much as I can't stand Don Jr., he seems to have done a good job
yep,
raising her.
yep.
And I saw something the other day where he apparently told all of the, I guess, young men trying to approach his daughter at the
Yeah.
RNC, he called them little bastards and to stay away from his daughter. And I'm like, you know what? As a
Respect.
father, I
I,
I would definitely relate to that.
I mean, if I was
Respect.
16 or 17 at the RNC, I'm telling you, like that girl is amazing.
Guys, it
And
feels weird saying such good stuff about people I
Yeah.
detest, but
I
you're
know.
all right on
And
this
well,
one.
well, at the end of the
So
day, I think voters want to relate to the candidate
yes,
that
yes,
they're voting. And when you have people that love this country see him, pay homage to Corey Com I can't pronounce his last name. Sorry, guys.
Comparatori.
compared yeah.
Comparatore. I thought the first part of his speech was more different than any speech I'd ever heard from Donald Trump.
Mhm.
Then he got into, the rest of his speech that went on forever. He mentioned Nancy Pelosi once, and I think he said Joe Biden maybe twice, even though he said he wasn't going to, and he couldn't help himself. Um, I think if he had just, talked for 10 or 15 minutes after the first part of his speech, it would have gone down as the best speech that he had ever given. Because it was emotional. You know, there were some people in the audience crying. Loomer doesn't count because she was probably going to cry anyways. But
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah. So my
I-
we're going to get back to the question, and then I'll roll into um, getting back to the Donald Trump thing. So the thing that I thought was really bad, and I understand that we have a freedom of religion, but the demonic. I don't know anything about whatever that Hindu. I think a Hindu god or whatever it is. I really didn't
Mahat
like
Guru.
I did not like that. I did not like that. Republican is all in my opinion has always been the Christian side of things, and I just it really bothered me that they would give both of you made the point of giving someone a platform and all that stuff, but it really irked me. Now getting back to Donald Trump, okay, so I think the three of us agree. I think the three of us agree that if it was up to the three of us, Ron DeSantis would be the nominee and hopefully the next president of the United States. Do we agree? Shake our heads. Yes. Okay. So
100%.
150%.
yes. Okay. So with that said, I was actually talking to Zach before the show about what he thought and just trying to get the conversation rolling and all that. And so in my opinion, and this is actually going to be, do I think the Republican Party is unified as well? I'm going to answer two questions at the same time here. I have seen Nikki Haley and I've seen Ron DeSantis and I've seen everybody that ran against Donald Trump now endorse Donald Trump or give delegates back to Donald Trump and all that stuff. So I do think that the Republican Party is unified. But at this point, I only see, a handful of people that you could even vote for that even have a chance. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley have dropped out. I would love to give Ron DeSantis my vote. But really, it's Joe Biden or the Democrats versus the Republicans. And it's really sad to say that it's the lesser of two evils, and it has to be, at least my vote, has to be for Donald Trump. Ask me again next week or the week after that, and I'll be like, fuck that. I'm voting Ron DeSantis. But as of right now, like, if you had to choose between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, that's the choice. Which one are you gonna choose? That's the way I feel. Yeah, again,
I think,
ask me again in 2 weeks, and I'll probably be like, no, I'm just gonna write in Ron DeSantis.
so I think we are privileged because we live in a very deep red state.
Also
So
true.
the electorate is going to go to Donald Trump.
Also true.
Now that gives us more freedom to vote our conscience rather than actually vote for, who will win.
So I have a backup for that, a follow up question for that. So if Donald Trump wins again and he does not win the popular vote, we all three know that the popular vote does not mean a damn thing. It's all about the electoral college votes. But if he wins the election and he loses the popular vote, are we going to see more riots again? Are they going to riot again? And I think yes, they will.
Okay.
And that
I
is the
think
reason
yes,
why I think I need to vote for Donald Trump. At least that
but
one point.
But another reason is because, again, I feel like Democrats are an actual threat to democracy because they have, you have the lawfare against Trump in the New York cases. But I seriously think, because there has been talk in the past of them trying to go away with the Electoral College and shift to popular vote for elections. And I honestly think with the border, with the way it is, if Republicans don't win this election, it's going to be hard in the future because of all of the illegal immigrants running free. And then you have all of these states trying to say that you have to be, or you don't have to be a legal citizen in order to vote, and trying to go against the Constitution, go against Supreme Court, all these cases going up to the Supreme Court. I just think that Republicans need to win. It's just hard being principled and having to have that inner battle with yourself.
Yep.
But again, we live in Alabama. We can we don't have to wrestle with that at night. Um, And so, yeah, it's just very difficult because, again, this is one of those instances where both candidates suck. Both vice presidential nominees are, you have the cackling Kamala that is just no experience, just an idiot. And then you have JD Vance who on 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 his face seems like a great guy. I do have some concerns, with him. One being him being tied to Peter Thiel. Mark, I know that was a big concern for you. His story is interesting. I watched the Hillbilly Elegy last night and finished it probably like an hour before we started this podcast. I know not everything in that is true, but on its face, I think he had a very interesting upbringing, uh, and where he is today is applaudable. Um, but I also think that if he were to win, him and Trump, if they were to win, then if they actually do the things that they say they're going to do and pass good policy and everything, it's going to make it very difficult for Ron DeSantis in 2028
So,
going forward, just because MAGA will prep him up.
Mark, I'm curious on. You look like you had some thoughts on my voting topic, and then I would like to hear JD Vance is my next subtopic. So I would like to hear your thoughts on JD Vance. I have not seen this the movie, and I have not read his book, so I don't. I have not. Yeah, books. I have not. So I am actually kind of new to the JD Vance thing, and currently trying to learn about him. So. Okay, so the questions are well, your my voting topic. What are your thoughts, and then thoughts on JD Vance?
Okay, so we'll start with Zach made an awesome point about the Electoral College being the one who votes there, and the privilege that we have where we are, choosing where you live, and voting locally for conservatives to take control of your state. It has it expands your own personal liberty, and so as early as 2010, Alabama was Democrat. We have not been Republican for long. Um, we've the Tea Party flipped this state in 2010, um, and because of that, we are blessed to be able to have a elect, our electoral electors will back the GOP nominee, no matter who that is. So that does give us freedom to do whatever. My position on Trump is he will never get my vote, ever. Um, and part of the reason for that is just because of how much I truly, genuinely believe in the concepts and principles of federalism itself. I think the office of the presidency is given too much popular in society, too much credit for how important it is. Um, when we look at the structure of the Constitution and the way our government is set up and how federal applied, especially after Chevron was just revoked, um, the importance of the presidency is just so little compared to the rest of it. So my thing I've said for a while now is as long as federalism exists, the idea of the lesser of two evils is a fallacy because it's a false dichotomy. We have another option. Um, if we focus our efforts on the down ballot, we take the House, we take the Senate, we take the governorships, we take the local state representatives, we take our sheriffs, we take our DAs, like we do our job to take the down ballot, we render the POTUS pretty much powerless, except for very few things. And so I believe in that to my core. And so my my concept of accepting the lesser of two evils thing, I reject it because there's a third option of fighting for this party and fighting down the ballot. I also see conservatism as the only thing that can save this country. I really do. And because of that, the only person um, in this country right now that has been effective at hurting conservatism has been Donald Trump, trying to run it out of the party, endorsing candidates with Liberty scores in their 40s over candidates that have perfect score,
Yeah,
and so on
good.
like that. Yeah, like it's the damage he's done to conservatives in the GOP is astronomical. And another few more years of that, he's just gonna keep going. So we have a cure for what's going on in the country, and it is conservatism. And the only one that's effectively hurting it is Donald Trump. So for
Now,
those reasons, I just will never vote for him.
and I completely understand that. Now, I have a question because it, he keeps shifting the party left, but it's those people out there, Trump voters, that don't seem to care. Now,
Yep.
I kind of view it as it being slow, it kind of being like the frog in boiling water. Um, but there are people like us who pay attention to politics, everything else. I was talking to my mom last night, and I had brought up, or maybe she had, talking about Candace Owens, and I went on a rant. I started sending her stuff because, she's on Facebook, and Facebook politics and X politics, polar opposite.
Hmm.
The boomers don't have access to all the things that, we do. I remember during the primary, one of the people I couldn't stand was DC Drano. He has just turned into
Yeah.
someone I don't care for, but his Instagram and Facebook are completely different than his, ex. He didn't mention Ron DeSantis once on those because boomers, they still like Ron DeSantis. It's the younger people who they can influence to kind of, shift that vote. But yeah, I kind of went off there. I don't even remember what point I was trying to make.
It's okay. We can
But
let's move to the Biden dropping out. So I mentioned earlier in the show about the whole assassination attempt, and I think that they failed there. So now they're trying to push him out. Um, so I have heard some. So I think the tally now is almost 40 Democrats have told him to drop out.
not
Um,
not not just 40 Democrats, like 40 top
yes,
Democrats.
40 top
Yeah,
Democrats have asked him to go ahead and drop out. I
who they
think
are
there
matters.
there has been a couple of them that have told him not only should he drop out, but he should resign and drop out. There is
Yeah,
now news coming out about some of the cabinet members, which to be 25th, Kamala Harris has to get in front of the cabinet and say, "Hey, it's time for him to go. He's just here's the reason." Well, there's apparently been a couple of cabinet members that have approached Kamala and have been talking about pushing him out using the 25th. So here's my opinion, and then I'll let you guys take the floor. My opinion is that Joe Biden has been ready to drop out for a couple of weeks now. The problem is that the Democrats won't offer him enough money, or they won't offer his family whatever he wants for him to drop out. I don't even know what could even be. What kind of deal they could come to.
Now, Hunter Biden's sentencing isn't until November. Keep that in mind.
We can talk about that too, but Donald Trump. I have full confidence that if Donald Trump wins in November, come January, I know Joe Biden has said that he's not going to pardon his son, but I think out of spite, Donald Trump will. I think there's been a couple of changes in his mindset. I think that he will pardon Hunter to spite the Democrats and be like, see, the Republicans were not really that bad. We're not really that bad.
Right about that.
And that might not be Trump's idea, but I do think that will happen. Like probably a day one or a week one thing. So my question to you guys is, what do you guys see playing out? What do you think about Joe Biden? Is he going to stay in, or is he going to go? And like last week, there could be two different views. What you think will happen might not necessarily be what you want to happen. So we want him to stay in because he's going to lose, but that doesn't necessarily. So want and think are two different things. And then any other thoughts on Joe Biden? Zach, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So I think Joe Biden, he has to drop out at this point. When you have all of these reports getting leaked, if they wanted to keep this a secret, they would. They want this to be leaked. I saw the other day Chris Coons, who's very close with Obama. He's close with the Bidens. He isn't even denying. He's saying he's going over what he thinks needs to, be gone over and making a decision. Also, with Elon pumping in 45 million into Trump's, super PAC every month up until the election now, they are raising huge amounts of money. And the Democratic donors, they're not giving Joe Biden any more money unless he steps down. So Democrats have no money. And
which is wild, isn't it? Because it just flipped.
Yeah, his approval ratings are at an all-time low.
Wasn't it?
So
when this whole campaign started, well, I just want to interject this one thing. When this whole campaign started and like it actually took off, wasn't it the Democrats that had like $400+ million in their stash, and the RNC was bankrupt? Wasn't that the thing?
Yeah, and what they were raising month to month, right up until last month, it was they had all the money.
That was insane.
Like we were taking out, the GOP was taking out loans.
And that is completely just reverse. It's been a wild election cycle to see for sure. As far as him dropping out, it's a matter of when all the reports are saying they're writing speeches now, and it's going to be tomorrow, maybe Monday. The question is, who are they going to replace? Now, Kamala is, the vice president. Will they choose her? I think if they skip over Kamala and they go with someone who isn't black or a woman, they're going to piss a lot of people off that, think that she should be president. And there's a lot of people like that in the Democratic Party. But Cenk made a good point. He's like, do you want to feel good or do you want to win? And Kamala's approval ratings are lower than Joe Biden's. Now the question is, who could...
Cenk sounds like a Republican.
Yeah, he's not, though. The question is, who could beat Donald Trump? Now there are a few choices. The top three that I've thought of, not Michelle Obama, because said she wouldn't run. There are three, and surprisingly enough, Gavin Newsom is not one of those three. You have Gretchen Whitmer, you have Wes Moore, Baltimore,
Mm,
and then you have Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. Now,
real threats.
yeah,
Yep.
Gretchen Whitmer is crazy. Wes Moore, he's 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 pretty progressive, but he's very accomplished on paper. Served uh, black man adds diversity. That ticket alone would cause a lot of never Trumpers to vote Trump. I think Croakey and Free have both said they would vote Trump if that were the ticket. Now, to me, the real threat would be Josh Shapiro because he is very moderate. Pennsylvania, if the listeners don't know, has a divided House, probably one of the only ones in the country. And he has to reach across the aisle all the time, whether it's gun control, um, or any other, topics that are controversial. Now, he has been pretty successful. If you haven't seen his interview with The Breakfast Club and Charlemagne the God on YouTube, I would research him because even if in this election he isn't the front runner, he will probably be in 2028 or after that. He was a prosecutor, um, and I want to say the only drawback that Democrats wouldn't choose him is he's white and he's Jewish. And the younger population now, they are pretty anti-Semitic on the Democratic side. And I don't see him winning the young vote, which is a huge chunk for Democrats, with a Jewish man that supports Israel. So at this point, I feel like they are going to pick Kamala to run, and it's just going to blow up in their face.
Mark, what do you think? So the question is, what do you think about Biden dropping out? Is he going to get 25th or um, finalizing a deal?
So
Do you have any specific thoughts on that?
yeah. So uh, one, Biden does not want to drop out. He's
I
fighting
agree.
this tooth and nail.
Mhm.
I actually, let me rephrase that. I imagine he personally would love to drop out. I don't think the family is going to let him. I think Jill and Hunter are the ones in control right now, because his mind has exited the building, and they need him in power more than anything else. And so the elder abuse continues. They're propping him up in in his ear continuously, in his heart continuously, um, telling him he needs to stay in. Um, and so I don't think they want to. I think the party has flipped hard enough now that word is getting back to him that if you don't, we will 25th you. So I think the pressure is there that now there's enough support to have him step down, that that is a reality, and they are using that as leverage. So the DC insiders that I listen to and follow that are usually pretty reliable, there's been a lot of leaks coming out from there, and uh, the consensus so far is that he is intending to finish out his term, that he is looking to go ahead and drop from the race, that he will not endorse Harris.
Mhm.
Instead,
Mm.
instead it'll be an open convention, and the way the DNC rules work, the mega donors, super donors, not donors, delegates, will not have first round votes. So it will be a free for all on that floor. That I will tune in and watch because that's going to be an epic disaster.
Oh yeah.
But as far as their options, Zach nailed it. I think those three are the top contenders. I I'm pretty much on the opinion. I don't think Whitmer is going to be the way to go there. I don't think she's going to be it. She might be a VP. That's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, I
Because
just don't.
you got to remember the
Uh,
electoral college. We often forget that we're electing a president, and so we experience from the voters' experience. We vote for this guy, and whoever's VP gets in. Well, the electoral college actually votes for both of them independently. They generally tend to keep them together, but the option to vote separately is there. And so, from the party perspective, they have the ability to put up a whole new ticket.
well,
Talking about
and not just that, but I mean, this goes more for popular vote. You still have RFK in the mix, who's polling, 9, 10%. I don't know if he's still in double digits or not.
yep.
So I think Democrats can't choose someone really progressive as their front runner, because there's a lot of Democrats and independents who don't want someone really progressive like
I think
Gavin
their biggest
Newsom.
Yep. I think their biggest threat to us is Wes Moore.
Hmm.
I think that's the
Wetmore,
biggest threat to us.
Westmore is he's very progressive though.
Yes, but he articulates it from a moderate perspective, and
So
so
here's
he's a good apologist for it. Unfortunately,
here's
Yeah.
the kind of the way that I'm thinking about it. So who in the Democrat Party has like the biggest base? Now, obviously outside of Biden. I'm going to throw a name out there. Bernie Sanders. If it's
Bernie,
I
not
think that
Bernie,
ship sailed.
if it's not
he's
Bernie Sanders, would it be who Bernie Sanders endorses?
No,
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 no.
you don't think
the
so?
party like no, because the machine of the Democrat Party absolutely does not want Bernie. I mean, just remember what they did to him when
Yes, but he still
Clinton
has a
was running.
huge following in the Democrat
You
He
Party.
know,
does.
you
The
know how
grassroots is there, but I think they've moved on.
you know how much I would laugh if they replaced Biden for being too old and then chose Bernie Sanders,
Okay,
who
well,
he
I'm
is
not
the same
saying.
age, if not older.
No, I think Bernie Sanders is 84. He's older. I'm not saying it's going to be Bernie Sanders. What I'm saying is who has the biggest base.
Wow.
So okay, so if it's not Donald Trump, who has the biggest base in the Republican Party? Ron DeSantis?
Right. So
Yeah.
who's the kingmaker here?
Right. So who was the next in line? So if it's not Ron DeSantis at that point, would it be who Ron DeSantis endorses?
I don't think so.
No, not necessarily. I think you have to ask yourself, who is the future of the Democratic Party? I think you have people like AOC, who they're wildly popular online, but I don't see her as someone running for president.
Are
I
you
see her
are you
more of
sure?
in the, if so, not now.
If Bernie
It
Sanders endorses her for president, you don't think that she's going to run?
No, absolutely
No?
not.
No? Really?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Maybe not this
No.
election. She's where she needs to be and where she wants to be. Um, it's the same thing. I think she cares more about being effective in Congress than being, president. I say the same thing about Thomas Massey and Chip Roy. I would love either of them to run, but I think their job is to be effective, and they would want to do that more so in Congress.
Hmm.
Okay.
I'd love to see Chip Roy run for governor of Texas. I think he would win easily,
Yeah,
but
Chip Roy and Thomas Massey have been two people that I've been following on X probably since about the time that you told me to follow them, probably 6 months, and those two are absolutely amazing. We got about 60 seconds left. So we have a couple of things that are going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, T-shirts, hats, some merchandise, and that will greatly support the stream. If you guys the show, you know, the show. If you guys just got to make sure that we follow you. You got us on X. I think the pinned post right now for all three of us is the main the Bearded Federalist show. So if you guys follow there, any news that comes out about us will be will be there on that Twitter account. Obviously, you can follow all of us depending on what your preferences. So with that, we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.